A young teacher is teaching her first grade class about the importance of sharing. She explains to the children that no one has everything they want, emphasizing the value of sharing with others. At this point, little Johnny's arm begins waving energetically at the back of the class, eager to share something. The teacher tries to ignore him, hoping to continue her lesson uninterrupted. But little Johnny persists, waving his arm even more vigorously and calling out,
"Oh, miss! Oh, miss!"
Finally, with a sigh and a smile, the teacher acknowledges him.
"Yes, Johnny? What is it?"
She asks, trying to remain calm and composed. Little Johnny stands up with a proud expression and proclaims to the entire class,
"At our house, we have everything."
The teacher, taken aback by his statement, responds,
"Don't be silly, Johnny. Not even the richest man has everything."
But little Johnny is undeterred.
"We do.
He insists.
My daddy said so the other day."
Curious and a bit skeptical, the teacher asks,
"Now, why would your father say such a thing?"
Little Johnny explains,
"Well, my 15-year-old sister came home with her skinhead boyfriend and told my parents she was pregnant. That's when my dad said, 'God, that's all we needed.'"
Dylan is practicing his golf swing in his front yard when he swings a little too hard and sends the ball through his neighbor's window. Dylan runs over and rings the doorbell 3 times. After no one answers for a few minutes, he opens the door to see broken glass everywhere. There's a lamp lying on the ground and a huge Arabian man wearing a turban sitting on the couch. Dylan asks, "Who are you?" The man replies,
"I am a genie you have freed from that lamp."
Dylan asks, "Oh man, do I get 3 wishes?" The genie replies,
"Since you freed me by accident, you only get 2, and I get 1.
Dylan thinks about it and realizes what he wants. "I want to be the best golfer ever." The surprised genie asks,
You sure? Most people wish for money, but okay, granted.
The genie continues.
Now your wife gets 1 wish.
Dylan brings over his wife, who wishes right away.
"I want $1 million every week of my life."
The genie says,
Granted. And now for my wish,
says the genie.
I have been cramped up in that lamp for many years, so it's been a while since I've been with a woman. I want 1 day of wild, crazy lovemaking with your wife, Dylan.
Dylan yells, "No way!" The genie asks,
Not even for $1 million a week?
Dylan turns to his wife, who says,
"I guess for all that, I should. But not until Dylan leaves."
Dylan agrees. "Okay, have fun, I guess," and leaves. Dylan's wife then proceeds to have wild, crazy lovemaking for the rest of the day with the genie. When they're finished, the genie asks how old her husband is.
45?
She replies. The genie laughs and asks,
Isn't he a little old? To be believing in genies?
2 blonde girls are working for the City Public Works Department. One digs a hole, then the other follows behind her and fills the hole in. They work up one side of the street, then down the other. Then they move on to the next street, working furiously all day without a rest. One girl digging a hole, the other girl filling it in. An onlooker is amazed at their hard work, but can't understand what they're doing. So he asks the hole digger, "I'm impressed by the effort you 2 are putting into your hard work, but I don't get it. Why do you dig a hole only to have your partner follow behind and fill it up again?" The hole digger wipes her brow and sighs.
"Well, I suppose it probably looks odd because we're normally a 3-person team. But today, the girl who plants the trees called in sick."
One morning, a woman tiptoes into the kitchen, where her husband is peacefully enjoying his morning coffee and reading the newspaper. She sneaks up behind him and, without warning, gives him a firm slap on the back of his head. Startled, he nearly spills his coffee. "What was that for?" he exclaims, rubbing the back of his head and turning to face her.
I found a piece of paper in your pocket with the name Mary Lou written on it.
She says furiously, waving the crumpled note in front of his face.
You had better have a good explanation.
Her husband takes a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "Calm down, honey," he says soothingly. "Remember last week when I was at the dog track? That was the name of the dog I bet on." She narrows her eyes, studying his face for any sign of deceit. After a tense moment, she reluctantly nods and walks away, leaving him to his coffee and newspaper. The next morning, just as he's settling into his routine with his cup of coffee, his wife creeps into the kitchen again. With a swift movement, she smacks him on the back of the head once more. He jumps, nearly knocking over his coffee mug. "What was that for?" he complains, turning around to see her standing there with a triumphant look on her face. His wife replies,
Your dog called last night.
An old Texas cowhand comes riding into town on a hot, dry, dusty day. The local sheriff watches from his chair in front of the saloon as the cowboy wearily dismounts and ties his horse to the rail a few feet away.
"Howdy, stranger,"
The sheriff greets him, tipping his hat.
"Howdy, Sheriff,"
The cowboy replies, tipping his own hat in return. The cowboy then walks slowly to the back of his horse, lifts the horse's tail, and places a big, deliberate kiss right where the sun doesn't shine. With a satisfied nod, he drops the tail and strides up to the wooden sidewalk, heading towards the saloon doors. The sheriff, taken aback, stands up and calls out,
"Hold on there, mister. Did I just see what I think I saw?"
The cowboy turns around, nonchalant, and says,
"I reckon you did, Sheriff. I got me some powerful chapped lips."
The sheriff, even more confused, asks,
"And does that cure 'em?"
The cowboy chuckles and replies,
"Nope. But it sure keep me from licking 'em."
As the Titanic is about to sink, chaos ensues as people on the ship shout, cry, run, and pray. Amidst the frenzy, a young passenger approaches the captain, seeking clarity.
Excuse me, Captain.
Says the young passenger.
How far is land from here?
"Probably at least 2 miles, replies the captain.
Only 2 miles?
Exclaims the passenger, his face lighting up with a glimmer of hope.
I'm a professional swimmer, and I have a dry suit on board. Just point me in the right direction, and I'll swim for help.
The captain just shakes his head and says, "I doubt that, son. I don't think you quite understand the situation."
Of course I do.
Insists the passenger.
Please, there isn't much time left. Just tell me the direction I need to swim to reach land.
The captain sighs deeply and replies, "Downward." One day, the first mate of a pirate ship makes his way below deck to speak to the oarsmen.
"Men, listen up.
He announces.
I've got some good news and some bad news for ye."
The oarsmen exchange curious glances, pausing their rowing to listen more closely. The first mate's eyes twinkle as he shares the first piece of information.
The good news is, we're going ashore for food and drink tonight.
A cheer erupts from the men, their faces lighting up with anticipation. Shouts of joy echo through the lower deck, and the first mate waits for the excitement to die down before he continues.
And that's not all,
He says with a grin.
there will also be women.
The cheers grow even louder, the men now patting each other on the back and laughing with glee. The first mate lets the celebration continue for a moment before raising his hands to regain their attention.
But first,
He says, his tone becoming more serious.
the captain has a request.
The oarsmen quiet down, their expressions turning curious again. The first mate continues.
The captain would like to go water skiing.
A man was attending a large convention in Miami. On this particular trip, he decided to bring his wife. After they arrived at their hotel and were shown to their room, the man told his wife, "You rest here while I register. I'll be back within an hour." So his wife lies down on the bed. Just then, a train passes by and shakes the room so hard she's thrown out of the bed. Thinking this must be a freak occurrence, she lies down once more. Again, a train shakes the room so violently she's pitched to the floor. Exasperated, she calls the front desk and asks for the manager. The manager tells her he'll be right up. The manager is naturally skeptical, but the wife insists the story is true.
Look, lie here on the bed. You'll be thrown right to the floor,
She tells the manager. So he lies down next to the wife. Just then, the husband walks in. "What are you doing here?" the husband shouts at the manager. The manager replies, "Would you believe I'm waiting for a train?"